When I got the call that every job reference I trusted had been poisoned against me, I thought my career was over. But they forgot one thing: Aurora doesn't break. I rebuild. And this time, I was going to watch their empire collapse, brick by brick. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to our channel and leave your comments. Today's story is about me, Aurora. I'm 34 years old, and I used to think loyalty and hard work were enough to earn respect. I was wrong. What I'm about to share is how the people I trusted the most, people I once called family at work, tried to erase me from my industry. But instead of disappearing, I found a way to turn their betrayal into their downfall. I wasn't born with money, connections, or an easy road. My parents were teachers in a small town. Education was our only inheritance. By the time I turned 22, I had clawed my way into a Fortune 500 company's marketing division as one of the youngest female strategists. I lived for late nights of brainstorming, obsessing over details that others ignored. Clients loved me. My presentations sparkled with creativity, and I had a rare ability. I could read a market like an open book. By 28, I was promoted to director of brand strategy. My salary jumped, my team doubled, and for the first time, I felt like I wasn't just surviving, I was winning. But the higher I rose, the more I noticed the whispers. The old boys club. The subtle exclusion. The fact that I, a young woman with no family connections, was beating executives who had inherited both their titles and their arrogance. And among those enemies was Hannah. Hannah was my opposite in every way. Where I was data-driven, she was charm and networking. She came from money, carried herself like she owned every room, and had the kind of laugh that made men in suits lean in closer. We had started at the company around the same time. At first, I thought we were friends. We grabbed coffee, exchanged book recommendations, even celebrated promotions together. But the truth was, Hannah had been studying me, waiting for the right moment. That moment came when the company announced something huge. They were preparing for a $10 million acquisition of a smaller startup. Whoever managed the brand transition would be in the spotlight. Whoever succeeded would be untouchable. I was chosen, and that's when Hannah decided she wasn't going to let me win. At first, it was small. She'd forget to CC me on important emails. She'd host meetings without me, then summarize them in ways that twisted my strategy into looking incomplete. Then, she went further. One morning, I walked into a presentation, ready to pitch a campaign I had worked on for weeks. But when I opened my slides on the big screen, they were blank. Deleted. I had saved everything the night before. My hands shook as I scrambled. I knew it wasn't an accident. Hannah smiled at me across the table, sipping her latte like nothing had happened. I still managed to speak from memory, impressing the executives despite her sabotage. But after that day, the war had begun. When I finally decided I'd had enough, I started interviewing at other companies. My reputation was strong, my portfolio spoke for itself. I thought it would be easy. But then rejection after rejection. One recruiter, a friend from grad school, finally told me the truth. Aurora, I don't know how to say this. Your references, they're giving bad reports. They're saying you're difficult to work with, unreliable, even manipulative. I felt the blood drain from my face. Those references weren't random, they were my own managers. People I had worked under for years. And the puppet master behind it all was Hannah. Imagine building a reputation for a decade, only to realize every door has been locked by the very people you built doors for. 4 months, I lived in a fog. Applications, silence, rejection. Bills piling up. I sold jewelry. I canceled trips. I even thought about moving back to my parents' small town. The humiliation burned deeper than the struggle. People whispered. Old colleagues avoided me. One night, sitting in my tiny apartment surrounded by unpaid bills, I whispered to myself. They want me gone. They think I'll vanish quietly. But they don't know me. That night, Aurora died, and someone new was born. I stopped applying for jobs in the same industry. If they wanted to gatekeep me out, fine. I'd build something bigger outside their reach. I began freelancing, helping small startups with branding. At first, the pay was tiny, but I treated each project like it was worth millions. Word spread. Clients came back. And then one client, a young CEO named Victor, introduced me to something that changed everything, a direct competitor to the company I had left. They were scrappy, ambitious, and hungry for disruption. When I walked into their office, it felt like déjà vu. They reminded me of myself years ago, fighting to be taken seriously. And they needed someone to lead their rebrand. I smiled. Let's build something that will make them regret ever crossing me. As I drafted the first campaign, I got wind of something. The company Hannah and my old bosses had fought so hard to keep me out of was in trouble. Their $10 million acquisition, it wasn't integrating well. Clients were confused, branding was a mess, and rumors of financial strain were circling. And I was about to make it worse. Much worse. Because I wasn't just building a brand for their competitor. I was designing their downfall. They thought controlling my references was the end of me. But it was only the beginning. Working with Victor and his startup was like oxygen after suffocation. They didn't have the polished halls or expensive suits my old company had, but they had grit. And grit was all I needed. Within weeks, I was steering their rebrand, new logo, streamlined message, campaigns that spoke directly to the frustrations clients had with my old company's bloated bureaucracy. Our angle was simple. We were fast, flexible, and fearless. And guess what? Clients noticed. First, we snagged a few mid-tier contracts. Then came a major client, a regional retailer the old company had been courting for years. I crafted a pitch, so sharp it cut through every one of their doubts. They signed with us. I still remember the look on Victor's face when he said, "Aurora, do you realize what this means? They've been chasing this account for years, and we got them in 2 weeks." I smiled, but deep inside, I knew what it really meant. The tide had turned. The irony, I didn't even have to dig for dirt. People from my old company, disillusioned, overworked, tired of Hannah's politics, started reaching out to me. They whispered secrets. The $10 million acquisition wasn't aligning. The startup they bought was losing key staff. Clients were leaving in droves. Every message, every late-night call was fuel. But I didn't want gossip. I wanted results. So I used what they told me to build smarter, sharper strategies. Every weakness they had, I turned into our weapon. It started small. One of their flagship campaigns launched and flopped. Miserably. Why? Because their messaging was outdated, stiff, corporate. Meanwhile, our campaigns were going viral on social media, gaining traction with younger audiences they couldn't reach. Then came the press. Articles started comparing us. Is the acquisition failing? The new startup that's outshining a giant. One evening, I received an email from Hannah herself. Short, sharp, poisonous. "Aurora, I hear you've been busy. Cute little projects. Just know, playtime won't last. We own this industry. Enjoy your scraps while you can." I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. Scraps? Oh no, Hannah. These weren't scraps. This was a feast. So I didn't reply. I let my silence do the talking, while our results screamed louder than any email ever could. Hannah must have been seething. Remember that acquisition they celebrated like it was their crown jewel? By the end of the year, it had become their anchor. The startup's founders, frustrated with corporate red tape, resigned. Key engineers followed. The technology integration failed. Clients who were supposed to come on board walked away. And worst of all, investors were watching. The $10 million deal that was supposed to solidify their dominance was now the very reason their stock started dropping. And right as panic spread, Victor's company, our company, announced new partnerships, including one with a former crown jewel client of theirs. But the sweetest moment wasn't the financial collapse. It was personal. Through my growing network, I learned that Hannah had staked her entire promotion on the success of the acquisition. She had bragged in meetings, taken credit for others' work, promised the board it would triple revenue. When it failed, guess who they blamed? Not the board. Not the market. Her. She was demoted. Stripped of authority. Whispers of her toxic tactics spread. Suddenly, the golden girl was radioactive. I didn't have to lift a finger. Karma did it for me. Meanwhile, Victor and I stood on a stage at a tech conference, announcing our company's expansion into new markets. Applause thundered. Cameras flashed. And I realized I had won, not just by surviving, but by thriving beyond their reach. I wasn't the broken woman they had tried to bury. I was the proof that you can't destroy someone who refuses to stay down. Months later, I ran into Hannah at a networking event. She looked smaller, dimmer. The sparkle in her eyes had dulled. She tried to mask it with her usual charm, but it cracked when she said softly, "You really hurt us, Aurora." I tilted my head and replied, "No, Hannah. You hurt yourself. I just refused to let you drag me down with you." And I walked away. Looking back, here's what I've learned. People can try to control your references, your reputation, your opportunities, but they can't control your resilience. They can't erase your skills, and they can never destroy someone who refuses to quit. My enemies thought they ended me with their $10 million deal. But in the end, that deal became their undoing. And me, I built something stronger. Revenge isn't always about destroying others. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge is proving they never had the power to destroy you in the first place. If you like my story, please like the video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with as many people as possible. Thanks for watching.